Hi, this is Joe again with another review. For the sake of this video, I'm going to be discussing a 1977 film, Oh God, starring George Burns, John Denver, Terry Garr. Also has Ralph Bellamy and Paul Sorvino in smaller roles towards the end of the film. Of course, this film gave renewed interest to George Burns' career. Of course, George Burns was a legendary comedian from the Burns and Allen Show. And in the early 70s, he started making his career was pretty much, he was performing comedy shows, stand-up shows, and nightclubs and stuff. But his career really took off in the early 70s, where he started to do movies. He did one with Brooke Shields, but he took world-renowned interest where he did this movie. He played God in this film, and he did it without makeup. So he says. So he said at the time. He did it without makeup, and of course, renewed interest. It revitalized his career until he died at the age of 100. He was about almost 80 years old. He was almost 80 years old when he did this movie. And like I said, it brought renewed interest to his career. Of course, like I said, this movie it's really from John Denver's point of view. The singer-songwriter John Denver, who plays a straight guy to George Burns' comedy. And of course, he's a married man to Terry Garr. Of course, later on she was in movies like Tootsie and Mr. Mom later on in the 80s. But also in 1977, she was also in Close Encounters. Terry Garr. She played Richard Dreyfuss' wife in that movie. Anyway, he plays a supermarket, assistant manager in a supermarket. And one particular day, he gets like a strange note in the mail saying that God wants to have an interview with him in this office building. So he goes, and he originally he thought it was some kind of like a practical joke. And the friend of his likes to pull practical jokes on him. So he thought it was a friend of his. But meanwhile, he found out that it was God. It was played by, like I said earlier, by George Burns. And of course, at first, he was he didn't quite believe what was going on. But then he slowly begins to believe that yes, he is actually talking to God. And so the reason why he decided to pick John Denver's character. And he says, look, I want you to spread my word that I'm still around, that I want to give, the people hope, and to have people who don't believe me anymore, I want them to give, those people hope. And then he says, oh come on. I said, why pick me? Why don't you go to the churches or synagogues, whatever, or mosques or so forth? And he goes, I don't believe in organized religion. I said, religion is your life. I mean, people here on earth may create churches to honor you, and you don't want to act, one religion or another. So, no, I don't want any religion. I don't want to I don't have anything to do with religion. I just want to deal with just people. That's what he says. So slowly and surely, John Denver's character, he decides to. His name was Jerry. His character's name was Jerry. He decides to do it, and of course, slowly but surely, people think that he was nuts because he was talking to God and he sees God, and so he had this one particular minister. At that time in the 1970s, TV preachers were becoming a huge deal. Like Jamie Swaggart and all those people who were asking people for money on TV. And the biggest name was played by Paul Sorvino. It was very interesting to see a relatively younger Paul Sorvino in this movie, because they were in the 90s, where they played gangsters and Goodfellas and stuff like that. And of course, they were in the 90s, was in Law and Order for a year and a half. So it was very interesting to see a younger Paul Sorvino, not too much younger, but young enough. And say, oh, he actually did. Actually, at the time he didn't have wrinkles on his face. So it's kind of funny to see a younger version of him. And George Burns tells Jerry John Denver character, to say, hey, I want you to go over to this guy for me and tell him that I think he's a fraud, he's a shyster, and he's not really, a man of God. He's like ripping his people off, and that type of thing. So of course John Denver does do that, and Paul Sorvino's character decides to sue him for slander, and so they go to court, and of course the judge in the case wants him to prove that God actually does exist. He says, well, I can't really prove that. I said, yeah, well, you're the guy who's going around talking to God and stuff, or God is talking to you, and you were trying to deliver, God's message, and you can't produce God. I mean, so it was John Denver's argument. So look, you have the sciences in God we trust, and you can't trust what I'm telling you, and it just like goes, like that, and then George Burns does show up, or God does show up, and he testifies. And of course, one of the bits that George Burns, as God says that you can't record me, you can't photograph me, because it won't work. You can't record my voice because that won't work. And so they all go, when it don't work? Why can't we record your voice? It's supposed to be like an inner voice, inner self, and it's trying to explain it like a religious way. Because you can't physically, like I'm physically talking to people in YouTube and internet, so there's videos, but you can't record God like I'm being recorded for this video, that type of thing. But for some crazy reason, no recording device will work to record God's voice, or God's face and stuff like that, because there's some crazy thing that God says no recording device will work on me because I'm God, that type of stuff. So so God was like testifying in the courtroom, and he's telling people, and so what's happening was there's some one of the court reporters comes up with a tape recorder, presses the tape recorder to record God, and they have the court stenographer who's supposed to record everything that's said in the courtroom, and they showed the tape, the ticker tape that comes out of the stenographer machine shows nothing. When God is talking, it showed nothing on the tape, and then they played the tape recording, another court reporter had, and the thing was and the tape was blank. So you had the tape from the stenographer machine was blank, and so was the tape recorder blank. So this is, but everyone there says, hey, we saw, we know we were talking to him, but for some stupid reason, for some crazy reason, it didn't record. And then John Denver says, oh, I remember now. God told me that they cannot be recorded on any recording device. And they said, why didn't God say this to us? When he was testifying, they can't be recorded. And it says, well, nobody told me in our first meeting that they cannot be recorded. So because there's no official court record of God, in the courtroom, the rule that God does not exist, and they didn't believe John Denver at all, but they did throw out the slander lawsuit. They threw that out, but the judge also proved that God there's no such thing as God. I mean, we really debunked the whole thing, and so what happened was, people now believe that John Denver was nutsy cuckoo, as I like to say it. So he ends up losing his job at the supermarket, and now he's out of a job, and now people think that he's nuts. I also mentioned that one thing they passed over was the only person who actually does make a cameo, actually played themselves in this movie, was Dinah Shore, and also the director of this movie, who was Carl Reiner, Rob Reiner's father, who passed away earlier this year in 2020, makes a cameo on the Dinah Shore television show. And of course, you know what Dinah Shore is. He had a very, very popular talk show at the time in the 70s and early 80s. He had a very popular talk show, and who tragically passed away. I think she passed away a few years ago from cancer. So she had a popular show, and John Denver's character goes on her show to talk about meeting God and stuff, and they had a police sketch artist to sketch God, and it sketched a picture of George Burns, of course, and people thought he was nuts and everything crazy and everything else. And so, of course, in the end of the movie, with John, even though he got trying to get the word out, a lot of people believed that, even in the courtroom, the judge believed everything that happened. But unfortunately, you can't prove it because there was nothing officially on the record. So he had to throw everything, what God said out, and there's no such thing as God and all that stuff. So at the very end of the movie, John Denver says, "Look, I lost everything. People think I'm nuts. I lost my job. I'm estranged from my wife. Estranged from my wife thinks I'm nuts. My kids think I'm nuts. People who don't even know me think I'm nuts. And I lost my job. My co-workers think I'm nuts. My employees who worked under me in the supermarket, they think I'm nuts." And so the George Burns says, "Look, we all know that you're not nuts, and you're a good man, and God is trying to be positive to John Denver's character, and it says, don't worry about it. There's other jobs, there's other things you can do, and it says, will we ever see each other again, or talk to each other?" And God says to him, "Look, you talk to me anytime you want, and I'll listen. You might physically see me anymore, but I'll listen to anytime you want to talk to me. I'll listen to you." And God walks off into the sunset, and that's how the movie ends. And I know that this movie did inspire 2 other sequels. One was Oh God Book 2, which came out I think about like 3 or 4 years later, and it's almost the same plot as his original Oh God film, but instead of being an adult, George Burns dealt with a little girl, to spread his message, and it was practically the same plot except being an adult was a little girl. I know there was a 3rd film, also a few years later. It's called Oh God, You Devil, where George Burns plays God and the devil, and with Ted Wass, who of course was known as the father on the TV show Blossom, or played the father on the TV show Blossom. Soul was banging over his soul and stuff. But of course, the first one is the best one of the Old God series. But the second one was pretty good too. But it's the same, I guess, just as the same plot as the first one. But Old God was the one who really brought George Burns' kickstarted his whole career and his age at that time. He was about 80 at that time, I think. So that's my review of the movie Oh God. Please click on the video, please rate it, please subscribe to my channel, please forward this video onto your Facebook pages. You can check out all my reviews and all on my YouTube channel at realityc.com, so WDY, C.com. That's the homepage for the reviewer, Christine Moore, and please check out all of his videos on his website. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.